Zane, it's been a long time away from Queensland Rugby. What's so excites you about diving straight in with a new coach, a new setup, and I guess a new dawn, as people are calling it at Bellingham?
Yeah, Jim, it's lucky for me, right? Christmas all came at once. 2001, started work here my very first time, spent 5 years working here and then headed overseas, so incredibly lucky. When Les called me, during the World Cup last year and invited me to come be a part of his coaching staff, I just couldn't have been more honoured. Firstly, for a guy like Les to invite me, and then secondly, very much around the passion of how much I know how passionate Queenslanders are around how much we want success for the Queensland Reds and how important that is for us. The other thing about that is that now I get to play a part in it. For so long, it's been a dream of mine to be working for the Queensland Reds, and I'm incredibly excited about doing that. Obviously, the coaching group that Les has brought together is an experienced one. Brad Davis, Jonathan Fisher. Incredibly enjoying the amount of time I'm spending with them and learning from them. And obviously Les has just got this really calm demeanour about how he goes about things. He's been really clear with what we want as a player, as a coaching group, around what we need to deliver for the players. And that in itself is, for me, has made my job easy.
When your background is coaching at Brothers and knowing the Queensland scene fairly intimately, you've got other coaches who don't know the local scene that well. How do you think that's an asset in terms of knowing the zoo around Brisbane?
Yeah, look, obviously there's some intricacies around club rugby and school rugby here in Queensland, and we understand that community rugby is a huge part of where we're at. We're obviously the apex of that. Firstly, probably what's more important than understand is just how many good players there are here in Queensland. What I'm been really impressed with coming back is how good our younger players in the academy are. Obviously, I've been lucky to experience over the last sort of 5 to 6 weeks with our Queensland Reds players and getting to know them and certainly their journeys as they've come through club rugby and come through school rugby. Very much I've been away for a long time, so even though I understand the system and how that goes, really it's a fresh start for all in the playing group. Everyone gets an opportunity. There's been some great work done previously with a great coaching staff last year, and now we just get the opportunity to build off those solid platforms that have been here. Obviously, my knowledge is very much around the club system and the school system, so getting the new coaches to understand how that goes is hopefully I can add benefit there.
I guess your background is as a forward. What's your exact role, and what do you want to enhance, having, I guess, studied where some perhaps deficiencies or where some improvements can be made?
Yeah, well, I've come in and looking after set piece and scrum and line out, and I'm also assisting, with that coordination of how the program gets put together. But this is where it gets a little bit dynamic, and what I'm loving about Les is just the freedom of Les, and he wants us all coaching across every area. And that in itself is really unique, because what that brings is gives you a confidence, and Les gives you a confidence as a coach to do your role and do it well. And that's, for me, probably the part I'm loving the most, because at the same time I'm looking after set piece, I also get to have a bit of a flavour across all the different areas of the game.
You spent a lot of time coaching in Japan. People can look beyond Japanese rugby for any lessons at all, but there are some really clear lessons in Japanese rugby. Skill enhancement, definitely one of them. What have you brought from your Japanese experience that you can apply to the Reds, perhaps?
Yeah, well, firstly, me speaking Japanese at meetings doesn't go down. I know that very much. So, 9 out of the last 18 years spent in Japan is a long time. So you're right, Jim, like my experience there is vast, and I really thoroughly enjoyed my time there. There's a great culture, there's a great rugby culture there. The thing that certainly around that skill enhancement's a really good point. Obviously Japanese, physically they're fast, it's almost like 15-a-side sevens at times. So there's a real asset around developing skills to be able to play fast and play at speed. But what's probably unknown about Japanese rugby is they love mauling. They absolutely love mauling. Every team mauls well, everyone scrummages well, probably because they're low to the ground, but there's a real love for that. And certainly for me, that's probably the thing I'm trying to bring to this group the most, myself and Jonathan Fisher, who's assisting me with forwards. Just a real passion, a real love for the set piece and how we go about driving that.
The way the season's laid out, you've got the Waratahs in round 1 and the Waratahs as a trial before that.
Yes.
We've asked Les this question. How important are those games against New South Wales, and how enhanced should matches always be against New South Wales?
Yeah, well, look, as a Queenslander, and Les probably answered this question very similarly, there's a special spot in our heart for those type of games. I think both sides of the border. And, probably for me, it's, it hits hard because it's an important one, but it's probably more a call to arms for our supporters. I think the reality for us is, for us to be successful as a group, we need the whole of Queensland to get behind us. It's a real call to arms for us to really get behind us, first for the trial, as well as, when the game here at Suncorp. And it's really important for us to understand the enormity of it. And it just, any time you play New South Wales, it's an exciting period. It's certainly, it's one of many games they're going to challenge us this year. So whilst it's an important game, for us, they're all going to be important.
Christy, anything from you, mate?
Yeah, please. G'day, Zane.
Hey, Christy. Good to see you, mate.
Thank you. Can you just tell us a little bit like your journey? It's a long one. It's a long one to come back to Queensland.
Yes.
Super Rugby. Coach development in Australia has been a bit of a problem in recent years. I dare say you're absolutely thrilled now, but how frustrating was it searching for so long to kind of get back into Super Rugby? And what more would you like to see Aussie Rugby do to try to encourage homegrown talent across the entire system?
Yeah, Christy, it's an interesting one though, mate, that one, isn't it? Because...
Can you just look at it?
Sorry.
Yeah. Just 'cause...
Christy, it's an interesting one, that one, because the reality is, as we all know, there's a number of quality Australian coaches around the world. But the reality is there's only a certain amount of jobs. So I think we all, whilst you say frustration, I'm not sure we're frustrated at that. I think we all appreciate that every opportunity is what it is. It's a learning opportunity for us to grow, and we continue to go away, continue to learn, regardless if we're at clubland, whether in Super Rugby, we're at international rugby, overseas, here. Clearly my opportunity is back here currently, but I've got no doubt that at some stage I'll have to go again. So for me, there's genuinely no frustration whatsoever around the development pathway or process. It is limited opportunities, and that also makes it exciting, right? That's our job. So for me, it's we've got to appreciate what the job is. We understand that if you're not good enough, you're not there, and you've just got to continue to learn and get better.
Yeah, how much further along the road do you think you are now from your days at the Rebels?
Yeah, good point. I'm older. I've got the same hairline. My beard's a little bit shorter, certainly. Certainly as a coach, I think every day you learn, Christy. So, I was a better coach today than I was yesterday based on what I did. I would like to think that I've grown. Probably a lot more patient these days. I'm not going to lie about that. Jimmy remembers me from probably the brothers' days. I'm certainly a lot more patient, and that just comes from age. What I'm excited about at the moment, though, in Australian rugby is, and certainly in Queensland rugby, one, the depth of the playing group we've got here. Two, the experience, that the shared experiences that they've had over the last sort of 4 to 5 years are going to put us in a really good spot. And two, at the moment, Christy, we're spending a lot of time with our community coaches coming in, viewing training, spending a lot of time with them. The talent's there, people have got the knowledge, the love for rugby's there. There's a real atmosphere and real excitement about where we're at.
Bit more player-specific one. In the past, for the Reds, obviously the scrum was pretty heavily reliant on Taniela in recent years, but you've got a couple of New Zealand kind of props that have come in. How crucial is the set piece for the Reds, but also the rolling ball? It's been something that the Reds have struggled at for a number of years. What are some of those tweaks that you can do and provide to shore up that area?
Yeah, well, certainly, firstly, I'll probably comment on Nella. Nella, what a great, he's a world-class footballer. So, any side that he's involved in, and certainly whatever team he leaves, there's going to be a gap there based on the fact he's a great human and a great player. And we're excited to see him back, right, healthy and fit. So that from us is exciting. And we're actually excited to see the contest. We're excited to now play against him. There's no doubt about that. We're really happy in terms of the adjustments we're going to have to make around us as a scrum. Firstly, what's really important is that we get the basics around the way that we want to scrummage first and foremost. And all that takes is you've got to have, firstly, a love for scrummaging, but then two, you've got to make sure we apply enough time to that. And Les has certainly allowed me to do that. From a rolling maul perspective, you know, it's an interesting one, isn't it? The attack will, for a number of years, has potentially dominated. The defence has dominated in the rolling maul, certainly during the World Cup period. It really depends on really the way that it's going to be refereed, and we're starting to get a really good understanding of how the referees want to referee it at the moment. And so for us, we're just hoping that, one, we get a love for it, and two, we take the opportunities when they come.
Two last ones. Harry Wilson, there's a bit of a perception that a few of the Reds players maybe plateaued in recent years. Someone like a Harry, so exciting, huge work rate, the rest of it. What can you hope to achieve, and what are some of the things you're kind of trying to bring in just to see those guys take their game to a new and greater level?
Yeah, it's a great point actually, and Harry's a really good one to talk about because, and even Geordie too as well, who we're about to talk about, because the reality for us is, and certainly in rugby, I feel like at times we really talk about players and where their weaknesses are, but certainly for us, we're talking really about highlighting players' strengths. Harry Wilson, one of the best ball carriers in the competition, highest metres gained in the competition last year as a ball carrier and ball in hand. You know, why are we not, you know, for us, we want to try and enhance that and take that to another level. Let's make Harry one of the best ball carriers going around, and which he's proved last over a number of years that he is. And he currently is showing that in training. So for us, we're very much looking at what players' strengths are and how we enhance that. And then again, we're obviously then, there's a few areas that we might be trying to work with players to improve and get better. But more so that enhancement of what they're really good at. And Harry's a great ball carrier, one of the best in the world, one of the best in the competition. We're just trying to enhance that, Christy.
Nice, cool. And last one, appreciate your time. You spent the World Cup campaign with Tonga, right? And,
yes.
You know, I'm sure a great experience. Kind of how did you end up with them, and what did you kind of learn from the World Cup that you can bring back to a Reds perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question, mate, because obviously I was with Tonga for the World Cup, actually over the last 2 years, actually. So the World Cup qualifiers 2 years ago, then leading in, and those tours in between my time in Japan. But prior to that, I was actually working with Samoa. So after the Rebels, went to Samoa and worked with their national team for 2 years. Whilst both Pacific Islander teams and beautiful in their own nature, around their own culture, both very, very unique in their own right. I can't be more grateful of Todai Kefu, you know, one of the Queensland greats, and currently, you know, on the coaching staff at South Rugby this year, coaching there again. Can't be more grateful for the opportunity I got to coach with them. Working with world-class players is what it is. You know, it's every coach's dream. You get to work with world-class players. And Chris, when you mention, you know, what am I bringing back to the Queensland Reds? I've come back to a place where I get to work with world-class players. Geordie Pattaya, one of them. So for me, you know, I get to do that again, day in, day out, working with guys like Geordie. They only enhance me as a person, and every interaction I have with guys like him are, you know, for me, invaluable and continue to help me learn as a coach and certainly as a human.
Yeah, well, sure, with the Great Pacific kind of population in Australian rugby, but also Queensland, that probably helps as well.
It does. You know, we've got across Australian rugby, we've got a strong Pacifica, involvement in the game at all levels, and it's critical to our success as a code. That again, we just continue to develop that, and again, probably get a really good understanding of the freedoms around the way that they play the game. What was exciting for me with Tonga, you know, you've got a guy like Charles Piutau comes up against or playing alongside, you know, a player that's played at club level, and just the way they go about instructing and helping that player and helping them get better, you know, there can't be a better example culturally of how we bring people along.